dog? Yo, what up? My name is Chad. You were gonna read? Oh, you were saying you said you wanted to read this book? What are you, like a nerd or something? I'll bet. You're probably a nerd. You look like a nerd. Oh, what am I doing? Probably nothing you'd be interested. Probably nothing you'd be interested in. You're too much of a nerd to even do what I'm gonna do. I'm putting on my cool denim jacket. Yeah, and I'm gonna go to do cool things like not reading. Look at this guy. Look at him. He's gonna read. Oh my god. Me and the boys, we're just about to go drink beer and do cigarettes instead of read, because reading is for the birds, as we say, in the cool town. Reading is for losers. Are you gonna drop that book and come join us? Smart choice. That was a test. You failed. You failed the test. You failed the test. I thought I raised you better than to do this. I thought you loved reading. Gosh, I'm so disappointed in you. What's that? You want to read the book anyway? No. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. And you expect me to trust you with reading Five Nights at Freddy's? No. I don't think so. We'll just sit here, I guess. Look at this. Dude, when the freaking like spring lock scene is happening in the book, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna look so real. Look what's happening on the inside when I do that. It looks like it's on fire. Like, why is there a light in there? What's even going on? Anyway, in today's book club, we are going to be reading chapters 7 through 8. So I did a stream earlier today, and I said I'd do a stream tomorrow, but here's the thing. I like this book, and I kind of just want to get through it. And you know, the more of these we do, the more episodes we have. But I made some inclusions. I got rid of Sonic and Tails and Knuckles because of the allegations that came out against them. So we won't be working with them anymore. But we do have a little tiger there and a little pine cone. And a new addition. We have kind of snuck up on me. We have a Lego plant that's right there. So that is very fun. It's a lot more safe than having Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles up there. I don't know how they're going to continue the Sonic movies with the allegations that came out against them. That's all I'm saying. Not going to try to get political. We're just trying to read Five Nights at Freddy's. Chapter 7. Mike stood next to the chair behind the desk and stared at the CCTV monitors. His gaze was locked on the middle one, which provided an exterior view of the building Mike was in. Apparently, flipping the breaker lever had done more than get the interior lights on. It had also tripped whatever switch controlled the outside lights. Staring at the lights on the monitor, Mike wasn't sure whether seeing the exterior lit up would have encouraged him or discouraged him from coming inside. Where do I put this? I'm just trying to find somewhere to put it down. I I don't know where to. I just don't know where to put this. I don't know where to put this. Where do I? There. That's fine. That's a good place to put it. Okay. The garnished signage was supposed to be welcoming, he was sure, but it had the opposite effect on Mike. Maybe that was because the lights, although on, were constantly flickering, alternatively casting a harsh glare and uninviting shadows out from the sprawling building. Resembling a slumped sleeping giant in the warring glare and shadows, the building clearly had seen better days. Roof saging, paint peeling, gutters dangling, and buildings' windows were boarded over. Even so, the CCTV monitors revealed a lit up, faded red sign that read Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. In the blossom of a sputtering spotlight, a cutout of the famed dude himself, the brown bear Mike had seen on the hallway posters. Looking over the empty parking lot, the bear's full tooth grin was probably supposed to shout, "Come on in!" Again, it had the opposite effect on Mike. Sighing, Mike looked at the VCR. Raglan had told Mike to look for a tape in the desktop drawer. Mike reached out to a few pens. Mike grabbed the tape before he sat in the desk's rolling gray vinyl office chair. Then he shoved the tape into the old VCR. He hit the power button on the TV. A click, a whir, and a thunk, and a few wavy tracking lines crackled onto the TV screen. Staticky, old-timey cartoon music played, and the tracking lines gave way to a graphic version of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and the pizzeria's logo. Mike raised an eyebrow at the tinny music, but he leaned back in his chair and put his attention on the TV screen as the logo dissolved into a title, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. Security brief. The cartoon music faded and the loud 80s music began. Mike watched the tape title break into a gazillion pixels as the title was replaced by a large restaurant dining room filled with happy families eating, talking, and laughing. A dozen or so little kids played or danced in the aisles between the tables. A merry-faced woman with curly strawberry blonde hair beamed at the camera. Her jolliness would have put Santa to shame. Mike found himself leaning back farther, as if he could escape the woman's merriment. The woman had the prettiest blue eyes and pouty red painted lips that she stretched into a big smile as she sang out, "Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, a place for kids and grown-ups, a place where fantasy and fun come to life." Nice. The woman flung out her arms, and for a second, Mike thought she was going to twirl with glee, but she didn't. Instead, she said, "If you're watching this video, it means you've been selected as Freddy's newest security guard. Congratulations. We're going to have so much fun together." Mike raised an eyebrow. "Were we?" he asked the TV screen. He shook his head as he kept watching. On the TV, the dining room scene and the woman's flip-flopped away. On the TV, the dining room scene and the woman flip-flopped away. And then the woman reappeared in front of a packed, brightly lit arcade. The arcade, lined with full-sized games, pinball machines, skee-ball machines, as well as a bunch of games Mike didn't recognize, featured a huge network of plastic towers and tunnels. These crisscrossed over a giant plastic ball pit. Even with even without all the blissed out kids playing, it was clear this place was any child's dream playground. The woman began speaking again. The genius who created Freddy Fazbear's Entertainment opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria to indulge in his two greatest passions: family-friendly fun and cutting-edge animatronic technology. On the screen, the arcade swirled into a black hole, and another room burst into view. Mike didn't think this room looked like nearly as much fun. Stuffed full of metal shelves and work tables, The room on the screen now was filled with what looked like robotic parts. In the center of the room, a reclining metal chair was occupied by an unmoving animatronic. First animatronic of the book is some animatronic. It was tough to tell what the animatronic was meant to be. Mike could only see some blonde fur at the edge of an expanse of the metal endoskeleton and a tangle of wires. A white... So in the movie, Henry FNAF movie. I wonder, can I share my screen when I'm doing this? Yeah, I can. Just share the entire screen. Sweet. So in the movie, let's see. Yeah, in the movie we have this. Which, by the way, I'm not saying this guy is meant to be Mike. I'm just saying other people have thought this was Mike. And so they have thought it was Mike. I don't see any yellow fur on this endoskeleton at all. I don't. It's interesting. It does have the ribs like a spring lock suit though, which is interesting. But it does have all the wires. I don't see any fur, however. The book describes the animatronic as having yellow fur. Let's see. Spring lock ribs and yellow fur. Just a thought. Just a thought. Maybe Golden Freddy. Maybe Golden Freddy? No, probably not. It's probably Skibbity Toilet, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Now that the evidence kind of lines up a little bit more clearly, it's probably Skibbity Toilet or Peter Griffin skin from Fortnite. Now that I'm really thinking about it, it's probably Peter Griffin skin from Fortnite. Mike could see only some blonde fur at the edge of an expanse of a metal endoskeleton. I tried saying that twice and I still messed it up. Endoskeleton of wires. A white... What is that? I have like blood on my finger. Could it be Freddy Fazbear? Could that be what it is? I don't know. I'm going to try to clean this up real quick. Here, just 1 second. Whee! Sorry, that was my inner Freddy Fazbear coming out. It's weird. Oh, I had a bloody nose earlier. That's why. It wasn't Freddy Fazbear after all. It was just my own bloody nose. Weird. Huh. I don't know. Maybe Freddy Fazbear did it. Maybe Freddy Fazbear did it. All right. What am I doing? A white-coated man, Mike guessed was a technician, was probing at the wires with a tool that looked like a cross between... Oh, wow! A pair of pliers and a pair of snipping shears. The tool was almost evil-looking, sharp and hard. Interesting. Well, in this clip here, it almost looks like he's just using a drill. I wonder if I can find FNAF movie training tape. I don't want to include sound in it. However, I do want to just see this, you know. Oh, this is the angle I was looking for. It's like the close-up. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. This endoskeleton is described as having yellow tufts of hair in the book. It also is an endoskeleton with ears. This endoskeleton has ears. So if we're combining the book canon with the movie canon, this could be Golden Freddy, maybe. I don't know. It could not be Golden Freddy. That's also a possibility. Also, this tool is not at all how it is described in the novel. It's more like just a standard drill. But that's okay. In the movie, they didn't really accurately portray Skibbity Toilet as they do in the novel. So it, things change all the time, Anyway, the tool was almost evil looking, sharp and hard. The woman reappeared on screen. She looked relentlessly happy. She thrilled. State of the art. Whoa. The woman looking resentingly happy. She thrilled. State of the art robotic tech. State of the art robotic engineering enables our characters to interact with our guests in truly lifelike fashion. With clearly concealing rechargeable lithium cells, give the characters limited range to roam free. The woman rose up on her tiptoes. Safety first. The screen suddenly went dark, and then the woman reappeared. Now she stood in front of Now she stood in front of an expanse of velvety red stage curtains. This should be good, Mike muttered. The moment on the screen said it. The woman. I think I may be going bald. I just read woman as moment. I think I may be going bald, guys. I should probably see a doctor about that. The woman on the screen said in a hyped up tone, "Let's introduce you to the stars of our show. Hit it, guys." The woman made a sweeping gesture with her left arm. The woman on the screen disappeared, and the TV was filled with the image of a hand striking a palm-sized red plastic button. The label above the button read, "Showtime." The curtains once again filled the TV screen. The woman was no longer in front of them, and the curtains were starting to part in inch. 2, 3, 4. The hems of the curtains fluttered as they moved, and then the image on the screen froze, and then dissolved into a blur of tracking lines. Mike leaned forward and whacked the side of the small TV. He probably did some of this too. Probably. The book doesn't say that, but that's what he does in the movie. He does this. That's what he does. By the way, this isn't Blenderhead. This isn't a Blenderhead. Anyway. Where's this? Mike leaned forward and whacked on the side of the TV. He didn't think it would do any good, but the TV emitted a sound of distortion, laughter, and the woman suddenly reappeared on the screen. She now stood in front of the pleated, pulled back curtains. She was looking to her right. Apparently toward whatever was on the now exposed stage. "Adorable, aren't they?" the woman asked, Adorable, aren't they? The woman asked, using a cutesy voice. "These cuddly critters and the proprietary technology that bring them to life are now your sacred duty to protect. Keep them safe and help ensure that Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is here to delight, dazzle, and entertain for years to come." The screen went black. Mike stared at it. "Seriously?" he asked aloud. The desk chair let out a squeal as Mike leaned forward and pulled the tape from the VCR. He stuck it back in the desk drawer and then shifted his attention to the CCTV monitors. There were 9 of them. Each one was streaming footage of various rooms in the restaurant, or some angle of the restaurant's exterior, or its surroundings. All of the images were black and white, and they were blurry, low resolution. The obscure monochromatic scenes reminded Mike of setting shots in a horror movie. Even though the areas appeared to be empty, they clearly hinted at trouble lurking off screen. They were surprisingly creepy. Mike lifted his gaze and looked around the room again. His attention landed on the lone locker. Randomly, his mind was suddenly filled with the image of seeing one of the boys in his school, Bobby, a poor, skinny kid who was teased relentlessly, being stuffed in his locker. The little hairs on the back of Mike's arms bristled as he looked at the slates at the top of the locker. What exactly was this thing? What exactly was in this thing? Mike tried to dismiss the question, but he knew he wouldn't be able to settle until he satisfied himself that the locker was empty, or that it was at least filled with something benign and inanimate. Fortnite. Okay. Leaving his backpack on the desk next to the TV, Mike got up and walked to the locker, hesitating only a second. He reached out and yanked the locker door open. The locker swung open and slapped back against the wall with a clang as Mike looked in the locker. His gaze met the bug eyes of a rosy-cheeked, grinning little boy. Mike yelped and immediately slammed the locker door shut. Again, he and slammed the locker door shut again. Sorry. He backed away from the locker and stared at it. His heart felt like it was detonating in his chest. What the hell was that? Mike's brain provided him with a replay of what he'd seen. He'd seen a boy. Shine skin, too colorful face, too much white in the eyes, and the most important, the boy was very, very punny. Conclusion? It wasn't a real boy. Mike rolled his eyes at his own skittishness. Whoa. Mike rolled his eyes at his own skittedness. Mike rolled his eyes at his own skittishness. My name of D's. He breathed in and out evenly, and then he stepped forward. This time, Mike pulled the locker door open slowly. Sitting at the locker's top shelf, the boy gazed at Mike placidly. Not a boy, a doll. Balloons. The doll wore a pinstripe, properly topped cap and held a sanity red balloon. Satany red balloon. The doll was too short to have been mistaken for a real child, unless you'd gotten yourself worked into a jump at your own shadow state of high anxiety. I really need to calm down, Mike said. The boy doll didn't agree, but it didn't disagree either. The boy's grin, however, did make Mike feel like the doll was laughing at him. Mike looked at the doll's bulging eyes, little worms of unease crawled up Mike's neck. He quickly reached and turned the doll's head so its face was aimed towards the back of the locker. There, balloon boy, Mike said. Laugh at that. Mike dropped his gaze from the doll and inspected the rest of the locker, wanting to be sure it didn't hold any creeptastic toys. Thankfully, it didn't. I told you there was going to be jump scares. That's a jump scare. That's in the book. It says that. That's a jump scare. Sorry. Sorry, I got to add them. All right. Back at it again. Okay. Mike dropped his gaze from the doll and inspected the rest of the locker. Whoops. Wanting to be sure it didn't hold any more creeptastic toys. Thankfully, it didn't. There were only two other things in the locker. One was great, a flashlight, one of the black ones that could be used as a weapon if necessary. Mike really hoped it wouldn't be necessary. The second thing in the locker was a Freddy Fazbear branded red security vest. Mike studied the vest for a second, then shrugged. Why not? Yeah. Why does he put it on? Like, this guy is so like edgy about everything, and he doesn't want to do anything, and he doesn't like anyone, and he doesn't want to talk to anyone, and he hates everyone. And then he sees a bright red jacket, and he's like, no one's around, I could put this vest on. Ah, that's my 7th vodka of the day. I make my own vodka. I make it out of Fortnite and love. It's my mom's secret ingredient for her vodka recipe is love. All right. Fortnite. Anyway, why not? Mike tugged the vest from its wire hanger. Mike grabbed the flashlight, gave Balloon Boy one last glance. To be honest, he wanted to make sure it was still turned towards the back of the locker, and shut the locker door. Stepping over to the desk, he set the flashlight where he'd be able to grab it quickly if the power went out. Then he slipped on his vest. He might as well look the part. Armed now with the hefty flashlight and a determined not to be so on edge, and a determination not to be so on edge, Mike decided he'd be more comfortable if he explored his surroundings a bit. The office itself didn't feel like much of a safe place, and so Mike wanted to know what else the building held. He decided to start with the main dining room he'd seen in the video. Mike left the office and headed back down the main hall, bypassing all the closed doors, not because he was afraid of what was behind them. Nope, not afraid at all. Mike retraced his steps back to the lobby. As he went, he shone his flashlight every which way. He didn't see much that he hadn't noticed before, except he did see that the hallway ceiling had an intercom speaker, like the one in the office. He figured they were probably all over the restaurant. Well, that'd be stupid. Why the crap would they have an intercom system across the restaurant? Think, Mike, idiot. Why would they have an intercom system across the restaurant? Loser. It doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Mike reached the lobby. He turned toward the archway. Then he strode through it and looked around. Although the building's power was full on the carnivorous dining area, it had to be at least 100 feet square. Was still filled with puddles of black and gray and the palest of dirty yellow. Mike looked up, and he saw that the yellow came from the moonlight shining through a bank of dirty skylights. Sorry. There's a skylight in in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Very interesting. Mike looked around, and he saw a light switch to the left of the archway. He took a step towards it, but then he remembered Raglan's warning about the electricity system. He didn't want to risk plunging the entire building into pitch darkness again, so he flicked on his flashlight. As soon as Mike aimed his flashlight at the expanse in front of him, he kind of wished he hadn't turned it on. The scene was bleak. Maybe if Mike hadn't watched the video, he wouldn't have been as put off by the vacant, filthy, desolate room. Mike's mind, however, was still filled with the bright, happy scene from the video. He expected to find a colorful room filled with tables. Instead, he was looking at a wasteland. Only a few tables remained, and these were covered with dust or filthy, torn tablecloths. A few toppled stacks of chairs were scattered around the room. The place scattered around the room. The black and white floor was littered with debris, hats, paper plates, napkins, empty cups. It says party hats. Party hats, paper plates, napkins, empty cups. Kicking one of the cups, Mike walked towards the two stages on the opposite side of the room. One of the stages was covered with an older version of the red curtain he'd seen in the video. The velvet on the curtain now was matted, and the red was faded. Over a smaller stage to the left, a purple curtain with gold stars sagged. A purple curtain with gold stars sagged. Mike recognized it from the poster in the hallway. He sincerely hoped the fox from the poster wasn't lurking behind the curtains. To counter the sudden melancholy of the neglect and forgotten dining room had created, Mike whistled loudly. The sound rang through the room, swirling out away from him, then returning. It reminded him of the way his words had echoed back in the lobby. Weird. Mike shook his head, reminding himself that he decided not to be spoken. Spooked. I'm stupid. I'm balding. I think I really am balding. I think that's the conclusion we came to. I'm balding. Mike shook his head, reminding himself he decided not to be spooked. He whistled again, even louder. He started to take a step forward. A loud clatter jerked Mike into a full startle. He sucked into a gasp and snapped his flashlight beam toward the sound. His flashlight's rays were aimed at the curtains that covered the stage. Was someone back there? Was someone else here? Hello? Mike called out. As soon as he threw out the word, he regretted it. How many times had he laughed at a character in a movie when they called out hello if someone was there? It probably wasn't someone up to any good. And now, Mike had announced his presence and the exact location. Brilliant. Mike kept his flashlight aimed at the curtains. They didn't move. Staying very, very still, Mike listened. He heard nothing. Not even his own breath. Mike realized he'd stopped breathing. He started again. Shining his light in a full circle, Mike decided there was no way too many potential hiding spots in the room, not the least of which was behind the closed curtains. The flashlight and the wimpy moonlight didn't give him even close to an acceptable view of the area around him. Mike turned and strode to the light switch, which it was worth the risk. Mike reached the switch quickly. He flipped it upwards. Nothing happened. Mike flipped the switch up and down several times. Click, click, click. No light. Perfect, Mike said. The word toyed with him the same way his whistles had. Mike decided to keep his mouth closed from now on. For a second, Mike thought about retreating back to the office. But if someone was in here, wasn't it his job to find them? I'm not getting paid enough for this, Mike thought. Even so, he stepped away from the light switch. Taking a deep breath, he advanced further into the room. Feeling vulnerable out in the middle of the room, Mike decided to hug the right wall. That wall, he noticed, was covered with children's drawings. Maybe 100 or more stick figure drawings, not unlike many of Abby's masterpieces, plastered the dining room walls like a wallpaper. That's cute. He thinks they're masterpieces. Yellowed and curling, the drawings fluttered as Mike passed them. Although Mike's flashlight beam illuminated the drawing, he gave them only cursory attention. His focus was on the main stage. That was where the sound had come from. Past the drawings, Mike reached a short flight of stairs that led up to the stage. Near the steps, a hand-sized red button was on the wall. It was the button from the video. The Showtime letters above it were faded, barely legible. If Mike hadn't known what it said, he might not have been able to piece the word together. Mike aimed his flashlight at the button. He shook his head. No way in hell he was going to press that thing. Mike passed by the button. He climbed the steps up on the stage, making sure to walk far enough in front of the curtains that he was beyond arm's reach of anything that might want to come out from behind them. Mike stepped softly over the dusty wood stage floor until he reached the middle of the stage where the two sides of the curtains met. He shone his light at the half-inch gap between them. Straightening his posture, as if a shoulder-back, soldier-like stance would prepare him for anything he was about to face. Mike reached out, took the edge of the curtain into his left hand. The velvet was crusty beneath his fingertips. Mike pulled back the curtain, and then that was another jump scare. Just in case you're too shell-shocked to know what just happened, I just scared you. So take that, loser. I'm better at not being scared than you are. Anyway, my name is Deez. What's going on? What am I reading? What is this? Mike pulled the curtain further back. Leaning with his flashlight, he poked his head behind the curtain. When Mike's flashlight beam landed on the first grinning, big-toothed mouth, the beam immediately jerked away. That took the light to another massive grin, and another. Stunned and awed by the size of the tooth-filled mouths he was seeing, Mike steadied his light and aimed it so it illuminated as wide a view as possible. As soon as he took in the whole scene, his awe morphed into dread. Mike immediately stepped back, still clutching the curtain in his left hand, not because he wanted to, but because his fingers had spastically clamped on the velvet material. He retreated. The curtain came with him, pulling up and away from the stage floor and opening a wider gap. Mike swept his flashlight left and right, and then he quickly shot the light away from what he was seeing. Finally dropping the curtain, Mike turned. He didn't bother to head for the stage stairs. He just leapt off the stage and started hot-footing it through the dining room. As Mike ran, his brain provided him with a recap of what he'd just seen. The huge white eyes that hovered over all the luring grins that had sent him scampering away like a bunny rabbit pursued by a hawk. The eyes, bunny rabbit. Had Mike really thought he'd seen what he'd seen? A chill cascade through Mike's body felt like a freezing waterfall. He ran faster. Mike tried to tell himself that his brain was playing tricks on him. He hadn't seen what he thought he'd seen, but he knew he was lying to himself. Just as Mike had dropped the curtain, one of the white eyes, the set that belonged to the big blue bunny, had shifted. It had watched Mike's retreat. Ooh, bunny alive? That actually isn't canon to the game. I'm pretty sure in the game the bunny isn't alive. I'm pretty sure in the game the bunny's dead. Sorry, bunny fans. I don't remember his name. His name is like Bunny. I don't know. He's got a stupid name. There's something wrong with the lighting here. Something's really weird. What's going on? Oh, I think I'm too backlit. Wait. How about that? No. What about that? No, it's still a little dark. What about that? No, I think it's that. It's that. Maybe if I... How about that? Is that right? No. It's this glare that's on top of my face. How about that? What about this? No. What about that? Is that right? Maybe this. Maybe that could help. I don't know. Maybe this. There we go. That's right. Okay. Chapter 8. My name is Jeff. Chapter 8 is a little long. Guys, look, mental health matters. Chapter 8 is a little long. You know what else is a little long? My patience. So I'll put up with this. Chapter. I might need to get something a little stronger than vodka, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm gonna go get that. I need to get something a little stronger. This book, man, it's ruining my life. All right, we got let's just jump right into chapter 8. Now, all right, so my throat's hurting kind of a little bit. I think it's from the stream I did earlier today. So might take tomorrow off. I don't know. Might need to calm down. See, chat's saying do chapter 8. I'm all for it, guys. Let's do it. This one might need to be a little simply because it's like 12. It's 12 in the morning right now. We're already at 40 minutes on the live stream. So, might just need to lock in, and with 8 chapters, that means we're like 99% done with the book. I'm pretty sure. I think that math's right. All right. Sticking to his trusty nighttime routine was more than a little challenging for Mike, given the circumstances. A multitude of obstacles stood between Mike and the normal flow of his bedtime ritual. First, of course, there was the fact that he was at work. He hadn't been hired to sleep, but the heck with that. Who was going to know if he slept instead of watching the creepy monitors? Second, there were contents of the building Mike was in. As much as he tried to convince himself that he hadn't seen the bluish-purple bunny move his eyes to watch him, he knew he had. If the bunny could watch him, what else could it do? What else could the other animatronics do? Mike had assumed they were powered down, but were they? Mike, tired. Third, Mike wasn't tired. He was too freaked out to be tired. But then, that's what the pills were for. Mike pondered this and other issues for an hour or so. He returned to the office. He also watched the office door, which he'd locked. When nothing had come to get him during the hour, Mike had decided to stick to his well-established bedtime habits. But first, he dragged one of the filing cabinets, the battered one, over to the door. Looking again at the scratch on the floor, he wondered if he wasn't the first to use the filing cabinet as a barricade. If so, what did the scratch mean? He didn't let himself think about it. How convenient, Mike. I hate you, Mike. I hate you, Mike. My name is Mike? Are you telling me my name is Mike? Anyway. If so, what did the scratch be? He didn't let himself think about it. Returning to the desk, Mike looked at the chair. Not ideal for sleeping, but if he had to put his head on the desk, he could make it work. Mike opened his backpack and started pulling out what he needed. Pills, check. Bottle of water, check. Cassette player, check. Dream theory, check. Alarm clock, check. Mike looked down at his watch. He decided to use his watch as his alarm clock instead of bringing his clock from home. He set his watch alarm now. Mike laid the paperback book next to the cassette player. Then he took his pills. So I guess in this version, Mike doesn't bring the Nebraska poster to the office. I kind of wish I watched the movie before, like right before reading this, so I could get a bit more of a perspective. Mike let out an audible gasp. My name of D's? Fortnite Among Us? Chug Jug? Peter Griffin challenge? Sorry, I read the wrong. I read the wrong paper. I read the wrong. I read the wrong one. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry about that. Mike laid the paperback next to the cassette player. Then he took his pill. Looking at the door one last time, Mike shifted his gaze to the wall clock opposite the desk. The hour hand was halfway between midnight and 1 a.m. Mike looked at all the monitors in turn: parking lot, lobby, hallways, kitchen, arcade, dining room, storage room, back of the restaurant, front of the restaurant, all empty, all quiet. Mike put his head down on his folding arms. He closed his eyes. Besides his bed, of course, there was one piece of Mike's nighty arsenal that he hadn't brought with him, the poster. But even so, when he closed his eyes, he immediately saw the swaying pine trees. He heard the breeze, too. Shifting into unconsciousness, Mike twitched and frowned. Was the breeze he was hearing? Was that the breeze he was hearing? It didn't sound quite right. It sounded more like static than a breeze, as if he was hearing the scratchy modulating of feedback coming through a speaker, maybe an intercom. This thought almost derailed Mike's descent into dreamland, but the pull of the pine trees undulation was too strong. Mike ignored the crackling that marred the soothing sound of the breeze. He let the pine trees drop him into a scene that was so familiar to him. The scene, however, didn't flow smoothly in Mike's mind tonight. It came in snatches. Gyrating tree branches. Orange toy airplane flying through the air. A spray of ketchup. How about some large burger? Finally, large burger and Five Nights at Freddy's. I was waiting for it. Five Nights at Candy's reference. How about some burger with that ketchup, hun? Mike's dad asks. Thund, fizz. Mike's mom's voice calls out. Keep an eye on your brother. Frisbee whizzing. Car engine revving. 12-year-old Mike shouts. Garrett! Branches slapping Mike's face. Black car zooming away. Garrett's pale face in the car's back window. Mike opens his mouth to scream, and for once, the scream makes it out of his mouth. Garrett! Mike watches the black car disappear around the bend. Then, Mike hears the children laughing. The sound comes from behind him. Confused, Mike turns. 5 children stand in the middle of the now empty road. One of them wears a paper top hat. One has a paper bib tied around his neck. Interesting. One wears paper rabbit ears. One holds a paper hook. Interesting. Huh. The only character that's described as being a boy out of the 4 is Chica. Huh. One of them was wearing a paper hat. One has a bib tied around his neck. One wears paper rabbit ears around what? One wears paper rabbit ears on her head. One holds a paper hook. Huh. So Bonnie's a girl and Chica's a boy. Might need to do some investigative journalism. FNAF movie Kids in Forest. Might need to do some investigative journalism. I'll bring you guys along. I'll bring you guys along for the ride. Here we go. All right. Yeah, this is just not correct. This is weird. Huh. Yeah. So you can tell Bonnie's a kid. This is Freddy back here with the top hat. This is Fortnite. I think this is Peter Griffin. I don't know. Can't remember the name. Actually, do I remember the names? Let's see. Do I remember the names? They all have like blurred out faces. Oh wait, no, they don't. Wait, yeah, they do. No, I think they blur out sometimes for lore reasons. They blur in and out. Okay, let's see. So, Fritz, Jeremy, Susie, oh shoot, what's the last kid's name? In the games, I mean. The last kid's names. Oh, shoot. I'm gonna have to remember this. Gabriel. That makes sense. Interesting. All right. Anyway, that was stupid. In the book, Chica is a boy and Bonnie's a girl. That is shocking, to say the least. The fifth child, a blonde boy with icy blue eyes, stands out in front of the other children. He has no paper props. Mike stares at the blonde boy. Who are you? By the way, everywhere in this book spells blonde without an E, which I think is interesting. Blond. She's a bombshell blonde, wired up to detonate. I'm James Bond, live to die another day. A bombshell blonde, high explosive dynamite. Oh. So, what? How is blonde? Wait, how is blonde spelled? So, blonde with an E is usually described a woman with light colored hair and can also be used as an adjective to describe their hair. Blonde without an E is traditionally used to describe a man or boy with light colored hair and can also be used as an adjective to describe a man's hair as blonde. Why? It's like English doesn't have any gendered language at all, except when it comes to hair colors. Then it's all gendered, honestly. That's so stupid. Anywho, Mike stares at the blonde boy. Who are you? He asks. How did you get here? Mike, the boy says nothing. In the periphery of Mike's vision, he sees the other children playing. For a moment, they seem strangely abstract, oversimplified. They're almost two-dimensional, like paper dolls instead of real children. As soon as Mike turns and looks at the children full on, though, the children are perfectly real. Mike shifts his gaze back to the blonde boy. As his focus transitions, he gets the same cardboard cutout expression of the kids. Quickly reorienting to look at the kids straight on, the flattened effects disappear again. Mike frowns, baffled. As bewildered as he feels, however, Mike has a little fire of exhilaration flickering in his belly. Whatever's happening is new, different than anything he's seen before. Mike stepped towards the boy as he gestures back over his shoulder to where the car disappeared. Did you see that car? Mike asks. Did you see what happened? The blond boy studies Mike, as if Mike in an ant inviting a picnic. Mike tries again. Did you see who took my brother? The blond boy smiles. Beyond him, the other children are back in 2D, like they've stepped out of the page of the book. Mike looked directly at the children. They're real again. Once, twice, 3 times, Mike adjusts his gaze, focusing, unfocusing, focusing, unfocusing, focusing, unfocusing. The children turn into flat turned images and then swell back into 3D. Finally, the children abruptly scattered. All 5 of the kids run. They go in 5 directions. Mike calls out, "Wait!" He looks from one fleeing child to the next to decide which one to follow. Mike finally chooses the blonde boy, who is just starting to disappear into the woods. Mike takes off at a full sprint. Pine branches thwack at Mike's face as he strains to keep the boy in his sights. He can see flashes of blonde hair through the branches. If he can just stay with the boy until they're out of the trees. Thunk! Mike's foot hits a rock. He loses his balance and pinches forward, his body flying towards the ground. Mike opens his eyes and discovered he was pinching forward in his chair. His body flew towards the floor. His head cracked against the hard linoleum. Moaning, "Ugh!" Mike put a hand to his forehead. He winced when his fingers pressed against the lump near his temple. Ow! Mike pulled his hand back from the tender area. He pushed off the floor and managed to keep his knees. Just as he started to get his bearings, a shrieky beep started stabbing at the pain in his head. Mike scrambled to his feet and clumsily poked at the watch, managing to shut off the alarm. He looked at the digital numbers. It was 6 a.m. Dropping back into the office chair, Mike slowly leaned forward and hit rewind on his cassette. He picked up his paperback book and flustered into the pages absently. What happened to his dream? Who were those kids? Mike rubbed the sleep from his eyes. He flinched when he once again encountered the bump on his forehead. Mike dropped his hands and looked around the office. It was as he'd left it before he'd gone to sleep. But something about it. Mike had never had a dream like that before. It couldn't be a coincidence that it happened when he was in this room. He thought about the dream, the kids, the top hat, the bib, the bunny ears, the hook. Had he just so weirded himself out that his fears had penetrated his dream? Or was something more going on? Mike's stomach was contracted with fear and confusion, but it was also fluttered. It fluttered with excitement. Was he on the verge of a breakthrough? That is some good tap water. I mean vodka Red Bull. Actually, I meant to say vodka Red Bull. I don't know. I actually don't know why. I actually don't know why I said tap water. All right, back to the book. Next part of the book, we got the ... So it's a new part of the chapter. The rising sun beams followed Mike through the door as he stepped into the house. The beams stretched out ahead of Mike and landed on Max, who was prone on her stomach on the sofa. The TV was predictably on QVC. Mike, his body feeling like it was buzzing, dropped his backpack and a white bakery bag on the kitchen table. He'd been so spun up by what had happened in his dream that he'd splurged and gotten a dozen donuts from the bakery at the grocery store, chocolate iced. Their sweet scent now combined with lingering smell of microwaved egg rolls. Mike didn't like egg rolls, but the fried smell was far better than any smell he'd encountered in the pizzeria. The pizzeria, Mike had thought. The job was there. The pizzeria. The pizzeria. Mike had thought the job there was going to be nothing but pain in the butt. But a pain in the butt. I'm gonna poop my pants. I think I'm balding. I think I'm balding. Woo! I think I'm actually balding. Anyway, who knew it would have such an effect on his dreams? Mike hadn't felt so buoyed in, well, he wasn't sure he'd felt this way, at least not in 13 years. Max let out a soft snore. Mike stepped over the TV and turned it off. Then he touched Max's shoulder, barely, just a brush against the dark purple fabric of her blouse. She raised her head with a snort, wiped drool from her mouth, and yawned. When she spotted Mike, she quickly sat up and finger combed through her hair. Then she wiped sleep from her eyes. Max's cheek looked flushed. She hoped she wasn't coming down with something. She was the best, make the most affordable sitter she'd found for Abby. How'd it go, Max? How did it go? How did it go? How did it go? Um, 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 How did it go? Um, 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 uh, uh. How'd it go? Max asked. Mike thought again about his dreams. He lifted one shoulder. It was interesting. Not the best job in the world, but I need it, like, as a reference for a judge who might try to take. He waved a hand. Never mind. Max nodded, then quickly looked away from Mike. Weird again. Max wasn't exactly Miss Bubbly, but she was usually good for some sarcasm or sass. And when she always looked him in the eye, why was she avoiding his gaze? Mike frowned. I do intend to pay you. You know, at some point, I totally read that wrong. You know, I do intend to pay you. You know, at some point. Hmm. 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 He picked up a donut. He picked up the donut bag. You sure you don't want a donut? Advance against your pay? He tried to grin. Max shook her head. She didn't smile. It's okay, she said. I know where you live. Mike chuckled. Max didn't. Max gathered up her stuff. Mike thought her posture was off. She was probably like this. So her posture was probably like this. Her posture was probably like this. That's probably what her posture was like. But I'm not sure. There's no pictures again, so I'm just trying to provide you with what I think is going on in the book. But that's probably what happened. Her posture was off, a little hunched. Maybe she was sick. You feeling okay? Mike asked. Max startled. Her flush deepened. Huh? Yeah, sure, I'm fine. She wasn't fine. Something was off. Mike thought about pushing to see what was up, but she had her own stuff to think about. He had his own stuff to think about. I think I might die. I think I might just lay on the floor and let time pass. Oh, man. See you tonight, Mike asked. Max gave him a half nod. She looked at Mike and started to open her mouth. Then she closed it. For several long seconds, Max and Mike looked at each other. Out of the blue, for the first time, Mike thought Max is a pretty girl. Ooh! Mike had always had too much going on to think about Max as pretty. She was just his babysitter. And that sounds weird. She was just his babysitter. And now she looked like a babysitter who had something she wanted to say. She was just going to quit. Was she just going to quit? Mike held his breath and waited. Finally, Max spoke. She's a really good kid, you know, she said. Huh? That was not what Mike had expected at all. What did Max mean by that? Mike didn't get the chance to ask Max, who was already out the door. Abby's room was bright with early morning sunlight. She could feel it warming her closed eyelids, but she wasn't ready to open her eyes just yet. Abby hugged Dolph close and burrowed deep under the covers. She wanted to spend a few more minutes with her friends. Abby could be with her friends when her eyes were open too, but sometimes it was easier to hang out with them when she was sleeping or when she was just going into or coming out of sleep. Interesting. Abby heard Mike open her door and walk over the bed. Not ready to talk to her brother, Abby pretended she was asleep. Abby listened to Mike walk to her bed. She concentrated on keeping her breathing slow and even. The mattress dipped as Mike lowered himself to the edge of her bed. What was he doing? Abby couldn't remember the last time Mike had sat on the edge of her bed while she was sleeping, or pretending to sleep. Tempted to hold her eyes and find out what was going on. Tempted to open her eyes and find out what was going on, Abby decided to wait it out. She kept breathing slowly. When Mike reached out and brushed the locks of Abby's hair from her cheek, then she was jerked a little. Maybe she didn't because she didn't seem... What? When Mike reached out and brushed the locks of Abby's hair from her cheek, she was sure she jerked a little, but maybe she didn't because Mike didn't seem to notice. He smoothed her hair and stayed where he was. Okay, that was enough. This was too weird. Abby opened her eyes. Hey, Abs, Mike said. Hey. Abby looked at her brother. Something was different about him. He didn't look too tense as usual. He almost looked happy. No, not quite, but something. Mike stood. I need to grab a towel. Then we have to get you to school. Abby nodded. Mike ruffled Abby's hair. That was strange, too. He gave her a quick grin and left her room. Wait a minute, you're telling me Mike is wholesome? You're telling me Mike lit wholesome? Hold on, you're telling me a shrimp fried this rice? Hold on, you're telling me a shrimp fried this rice? Are you seriously going to sit here and tell me a shrimp fried this rice? Are you seriously going to tell me a shrimp fried this rice? Are you going to tell me a shrimp fried this rice? Are you going to tell me a shrimp fried this rice? Slouched in the corner of a cracked gray vinyl booth that smelled like lemon cleaner, Maxine put her shoulder against the adjacent window. Oh, I think this is the scene. The bad scene. Ugh. Gross. The window glass felt cool through the mud brown top she'd put on top just for this meeting at Sparky's Diner. Sparky's Diner? Sparky? That's the thing for Five Nights at Freddy's. Sparky the Diner? Hey! The top felt appropriate. It looked dirty, and this meeting made Maxine feel dirty. Usually, Maxine loved the aromas of a diner, that distinct mix of bacon and eggs, and waffle and pancakes, breakfast foods, and burgers and fries lunch fare. She was probably one of the few people in the world who loved the smell of fry oil. Today, however, the food smells were making her feel queasy. Or no, it was way it was why or no, it was why she was here that was making her feel queasy. Ignoring the conversational buzz and glasses and dishes clanking and other clatter around her, Maxine stared out the window and watched a swelling black cloud rush over toward the sad, faded, octagonal building. The cloud's shape was eerily skull like, complete with what looked like vacant eye holes and a hungry maw. The cloud had already consumed the bright sky, and that had dominion the morning, and now it looked like it was going to gobble up the old, run-down, greasy spoon. A sharp elbow jabbed into Maxine's rib. She turned and frowned at her brother. Space, she said. She didn't have to say more. Jeff understood her shorthand. He scooted a few inches away from her. Even though Jeff was 10 years older, the two of them were close. Maxine was little. Both of her parents had worked 2 jobs. Jeff had been more than a brother to Maxine. He'd been something closer to a surrogate dad. Even if he was a screw up at it, something closer to a surrogate dad. Even if he was a screw up at it. I am dumb. At 10, Jeff hadn't known squat about taking care of a baby. In the weeks after Maxine's mom's maternity leave had ended, Jeff had done his best. Even so, he'd lost his sister more than once, nearly drowned her, dropped her, scaled her foot, scalded her, and fed her more candy than nutritious food. It was a wonder Maxine survived. Sorry, Jeff said in a tone that made it clear he wasn't. Sorry. Maybe he said it like this. Sorry. Maybe he said it like this. Sorry. Maybe he said it like this. You thought I wouldn't get you again, but I did. I did get you again. Wah! That was my impersonation of Blender. This is my impersonation of Jeff. Sorry. All right. He picked up a paper-covered straw and tore it off the end of the wrapping paper. Pulling the paper back just a half inch, he put the straw to his lips and blew, shooting the paper wrapper at Maxine's face. It hit her nose. Maxine sighed and glared at Jeff. Age? Jeff snorted and laughed. Ha ha! He elbowed Maxine again, this time on purpose. Maxine sighed once more and shook her head. That's probably what she did. She looked across the other side of the table. It caught her attention. She looked across the scarred pine wood table at the lump sitting on the opposite side of the booth. The man's name was Doug. Just Doug. He'd said when he'd introduced himself. Doug was supposedly a lawyer. What kind of lawyer only went by his first name? A scuzz lawyer? That's what kind. She noticed Doug was staring at her breasts. Gross, this isn't Doug. As he slurped at a cup of coffee, to which she watched him add 4 creamers and 6 packs of sugars just a few minutes before. She immediately lowered her gaze and crossed her arms at her chest. Total sleazeball, Maxine thought. This is Doug slander? Doug would never do this. This isn't real. What was she doing here? Maxine glanced at Jeff. He was sucking his soda noisily. So imagine this is a soda and imagine this is a straw. That's probably what he was doing. She could feel his knee bouncing under the table. She knew he felt as awkward as she did, but probably for different reasons. Maxine loved her brother, and she thought he had a lot going for him, having gotten more of their mother's looks than their father's. Jeff's hair was a sandy brown, and his features were small and balanced. His features, however, didn't fit the size. At a good size 6'2", Jeff's body was too large for his small face. Even so, Maxine thought he was cute. He was kind, too. He had a big heart. Jeff, however, was the king of bad choices. He already done time twice for relatively minor stuff, car theft, breaking and entering. He couldn't seem to hold on to a job. She really shouldn't have let him talk her into this, or anything for that matter. Maxine already felt terrible about what she was doing. She didn't want to do anything worse. No, she shouldn't be here. Outside, rain started tapping on the window. Maxine nudged Jeff. Move, she said. She needed to get out of here. Before Jeff could even twitch, a glamorous cat crash cut through the normal diner hubbub. Maxine had jerked to her left as she instinctively sought the source of the sound. Jeff and Doug looked in that direction too. Doug had to swivel his thick neck to look over his shoulder. Sparky's eating area was arranged in a C shape. This is a C shape for all my chat members that don't know what a C is. This is what a C looks like. Not ignore these fingers. This is what a C looks like. Like ignore these fingers right here. Ignore these fingers. Pretend like these fingers don't exist. This is what a C looks like. Ignore these fingers. These fingers right here. I know they may look important, but these three fingers. These three fingers. This one, and this one. Ignore those fingers. Those aren't important for this. This is what a C looks like. This is what a C looks like, chat. Ignore these fingers right here, because this is what a C looks like. Just ignore these fingers, like 1, 2, 3. You could just ignore those fingers, and this is what a C looks like. And you could just ignore these fingers if you want to, if it makes it easier. All right. My name is Jeff. Sparky's eating area was arranged in the shape of a C. Ignore these fingers. Around the kitchen, which took up about a third of the building's octagon. A squared-off counter cradled the cook's domain, from which came a constant din of sizzling, banging, and shouting. The booths lined the outer wall of the building. The door was at the end of the bottom leg of the C. So that'd be down here. Ignore these fingers. Ignore these fingers. C right here. That'd be like down here. The racket that had canceled out everything else in the diner was an explosion of broken dishes that apparently had fallen from a busboy's very full tray. The boy, actually a sad-looking 30-something guy, going prematurely bald, just like me, was mumbling something Maxine couldn't hear, as he probably to his knees to clean up the mess. Standing over him was a petite woman with ash blonde hair, a blonde with an E. Huh. Interesting. So when it's a boy, blonde is spelled without an E. And when it's a girl, blonde is spelled with an E. I'm going to have to ask my English professor about that. I'm going to have to make a note about that. That is so interesting. And also lame. If you're a writer and you spell blonde for boys without an E, you're lame and you're sexist and you're discriminating against us men. We deserve the same rights as women. We deserve that E. We want that E. Give us the E back. I think I lost my place. No, I didn't. All right. We give us back the E. We want it. As a blonde, as a member of the blonde male community, give us back the freaking E. We need it back. The new Trump administration, the legislation he's trying to pass, they want to completely ban all men from getting E's if they're blonde. They want to ban E from boy names. They went to the boy name dictionary and they got rid of every single E. None of this would have happened in Kamala's America. It wouldn't have. My name is Sam Ellis. Imagine what my name is going to be like when this legislation is passed. My name is going to be Sam Liss. That was stupid. That was a stupid thing to say. Anyway. Standing over him was a petite woman with an ash blonde, no doubt from a bottle, pixie cut. Jane, Mike's aunt. Probably in deficit of the storm kicking up outside the diner, Jane wore a pale pink pantsuit with matching high heels. She looked prime and proper. But Maxine knew she wasn't. Hands on hips, Jane deliberately stomped onto the broken glass beneath her feet. She narrowly avoided the busboy's fingers. Max had a feeling the miss was an accident. No, you watch where you're going, Jane screeched. She kicked a shard of broken glass at the busboy's shoes. The busboy glared at Jane as she flounced away from him. Jane headed directly toward the booth Maxine really didn't want to be in. She couldn't escape, though. Now that Jane was here, it was too late. Nearly everyone in the place had frozen when they'd heard the dish explosion. And now, most of the diners were returning to their foods. Many pairs of eyes tracked Jane's progress, though. Her diva-like dramatics were designed to put her in the limelight. She made a point to huff theatrically as she moved. Her high heels made emphatic little tapping sounds on the diner's scuffed burgundy linoleum. Why does this book keep saying linoleum? It's kind of pissing me off. Stop saying linoleum. Stop saying linoleum. It's kind of pissing me off. Stop saying linoleum. It's hard to read. That's sexist against men. Us men can't pronounce linoleum. Stop putting it in books. How are we supposed to learn how to read if you keep putting linoleum in books? I'm going to make that a t-shirt when I do merch. How are we expected to read if you're going to keep putting linoleum in books? I don't even know how to read. What's going on? I don't even know how to read. What's up? My name's Zach. I'm 19 years old and I never learned how to read. Anyway. Jane reached their booth and slid in next to Doug. When she didn't have enough space, she shot Doug a look. And he appeared to attempt to let some air out of a balloon of his body. He squished himself against the window. Before anyone says anything, Jane said as she settled herself in, I have somewhere I have to be, so let's make this quick. A tall, lanky, auburn-haired teen wearing a Sparky's uniform shirt and a white half apron tied around his waist. Maxine knew his name was Ness. He was Sparky's son. Hey! This is Matt Pat. Matt Pat's Sparky's son. And he's also a teenager, which is funny. So that's cool. That's funny. Hi there, Ness said. Welcome to Sparky's. Ness lifted a hand towards Maxine and gave her a little smile. Hi, my name is Ness. Welcome to Sparky's. Hi, everybody. My name is Ness. It would have been funnier if in the movie Matt Pat said, "Hi, my name is Jeff." Welcome to Sparky's. Anyway, she returned the smile. Can I get you folks started off with some appetite? We're not eating, Jane said. Well, that's no fun, Ness said. He leaned towards Jane and gave her a wink. You know what they say, lunch is the most important meal of the day. It's coming up. I'm so excited. I thought it was breakfast, Jeff said. He frowned as if thinking hard on the subject. Maxine mentally shook her head. Or she shook her head in her mind. Her brother was a sweetie, but he wasn't all that bright. Some people say that, Ness says, but it's just a theory. He grinned. Some people say that, but it's just a theory. It's just a theory. I'm just reading it as I'm seeing it. All right. A lot of people have been commenting, don't like the faces I make. That's just the faces they say happen in the books. I'm sorry, I can't help it. Jane narrowed her eyes and looked at Ness like he was a gnat. Are you getting paid by the word? Jane asked. Or can we have a minute? Ness's grin drooped. So did the rest of his face. He shrugged and walked away from the booth. And then imagine, I can't walk away, I'm sitting down, but imagine he went, and then he walked away from the booth. Jane curled her lip at Ness's retreating back. Her lips were painted in color that matched her pantsuit. It wasn't a good look. Jane shifted her attention to the booth's companions. Now, where were we? She asked. No one answered. Jane skewered Maxine with her best Cruella de Vil look. Oh, right, Jane said. I don't know why there's so many burps in this book. You were about to tell me what a miserable failure you are. Before Maxine could open her mouth to tell Jane what to do with herself, Jeff leaned over the table. He jabbed a finger in Jane's direction. Hold on, I'm trying to find my place. Hold on, just give me a second. I'm trying to find my face. Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. I'm trying to find my place. Yeah, I'm just trying to find my place. When I made the joke, I kind of lost my place, and now I'm trying to find my place. Yeah, I'm just trying to find it now. Hey, screw you, lady, Jeff said. Maxine felt a surge of love for her brother. He was sweet and kind, but he always turned into a bulldog when anyone tried to mess with Maxine. I'm going to read that again. He was sweet and kind, but he was always I'm way too tired for this. Way too tired. He was sweet and kind, but he always turned into a bulldog when anyone tried to mess with Maxine. Could you imagine if they did that in the movie? Like, whenever Jeff got mad, he just turned into a bulldog, and then he'd say, "My name is Jeff." That'd be crazy. Wait a minute, his name is a Jeff. Wait a minute. Okay. Hey, screw you, lady, Jeff said. Maxine felt my sister went over every inch of that dump 100 times, Jeff said. If there was something to find, she would have found it. He slammed a hand on the table. Now pay up. Jane raised an eyebrow. My name's Jeff? I'm sorry. You said 200, Jeff said. Maxine felt unusually meek, probably because of the guilt that had been strangling her ever since she'd agreed to do what Maxine wanted to do. Spoke up softly. We had a deal, she told Jane. Jane tilted her head to one side and slid her gaze up and down Maxine's torso. Maxine had to keep herself from looking down to be sure she hadn't have a stain or something. Yes, Jane said, finally. The deal was that you'd find me hard proof of criminal endangerment, something actionable. Instead, all I've heard from you is what my nice kid of some. Instead, all I heard from you is about what a nice kid my niece is and how my nephew sleeps a lot. He really does, though, Maxine said. Oh, Maxine. Jane banged a fist on the table. Jeff's soda glass jittered. Ugh. And Doug's coffee slosh. Wachunga. His discarded little creamer cups and sugar packets hopped across the table like startled frogs. Ribbit. Sleeping is not a crime, James shouted. I'm not shouting. Heads on the table, heads at the diner's counter and nearby booths swiveled to stare at Jane. She clearly didn't notice or care. Jeff ignored Jane. His gaze was on Doug. Maxine looked at the lawyer. He was red in the face, and his eyes looked like they were trying to explode out of his head. Hey, dude, Jeff said to Doug. You okay? Doug moved his mouth around as if he was trying to work up a spit. I just realized, Doug said. He worked his mouth again, then cleared his throat. I probably shouldn't be hearing any of this. As if seeking rescue, I probably shouldn't be hearing. I probably shouldn't be hearing any of this. I probably shouldn't be here at all. He looked around wildly. As if seeking rescue. He began scooting toward Jane, as if he could hip scoot her out of the booth and flee. Jane raised a hand towards Doug. Stay, she commanded. Doug stayed. Maxine felt like she should get a treat or something. Haha. Because it like dog. Jane looked from Maxine to Jeff. My name is Jeff. No one spoke. Maxine just wanted the whole thing to be over. She didn't even care if she got the money Jane had promised. She never should have agreed to search for dirt on Mike. Sure, Maxine needed cash. She always needed cash. And yes, she was annoyed with Mike because he never bothered to look at her. Really look at her. But, well, feel like I'm reading Fortnite. Sure, Maxine needed the cash. She always needed cash. And yes, she was annoyed with Mike because he never bothered to look at her. Really look at her. But, well, I guess we're done here, Jane said. Unless either of you have any bright ideas, which I do realize is unlikely. My name of Jeff piped up. Why don't we just kill him? Maxine shot her brother a look. Was he serious? Yeah. She couldn't tell. Jeff was kind, yes, but he had a comic book view of life. There were his people and everyone else. Mike was part of everyone else. In Jeff's view, Mike might have been disposable. Why don't we just kill him? Guys, this book could have been this short if they just killed Mike. Why didn't? Honestly, I'm part of the Mike dead theory. That's the theory that the rest of the movie isn't even real. Vanessa doesn't exist. Thank goodness. Steve Raglan isn't William Afton, and they just kill Mike Schmidt in the beginning. That's the theory I abide by. Doug tried to shove Jane out of his way with his big, soft shoulder. Some of that action. He half attempted to stand in the booth. Jane immediately yanked his tie. Jane immediately grabbed his tie, yanked him down, and used the flat of her hand to shove him back into place. He didn't resist her. He retreated toward the window. Jane looked at Jeff with an expression somewhat similar to approval. Tempting, Jane said, but no. It's interesting. Like the parallels between like brothers and sisters, you know, because obviously Mike and Abby have sort of a weird relationship right now, but by the end of the book, they're obviously going to be very, very close brother and sister. And then you have Maxine and my name Jeff right here. They're incredibly close, even with Jeff having a similar, like my name is Jeff, having a similar story to Mike, where he raised his little sister. And then you have Jane, who has a brother, and that's Mike's dad. So her brother's kids are so disposable, and she hates them so much that she's like, you know, we could kill Mike. No, that's probably not. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. I probably wouldn't get as much money if I killed Mike. That's just interesting stuff. Weird themes in the FNAF book. Very, very weird themes. Not thinking before opening her mouth, Maxine whispered, his job. Why did she do that? Jane turned toward Maxine and leaned forward. Speak up, honey. The word honey was triple wrapped in sarcasm. Hating herself, but apparently unable to stop herself, Maxine raised her voice and continued. Well, Mike was saying how he really needed his new job, you know, so he could look good on paper, like for the judge. Jane snorted. My nephew, the altruist? That's all very fascinating, dear, but I'm not hearing the plan. Maxine glanced at Jeff. My name's Jeff. He returned the gaze, and he grinned. He looked back toward Jane. We tossed the place, Jeff said. Jane raised her eyebrow, clearly surprised that my name Jeff had said something semi-interesting. Go on, she said. My name Jeff shoved aside his soda glass and put both hands and palms down on the table. Mike's a security guard, right? His job is to make sure no one gets in. So he looked from Jane to Maxine and back to Jane. We get in, mess the place up good, help ourselves to whatever we find along the way. My name Jeff lifted his fingers and pointed at Jane. Your nephew gets canned. Judge gives you the kid. He hesitated, then looked back, crossed his arms, and you give us $200. You give us $2,000. That's a lot of money. Yikes. Jane pulled in her chin and gave my name Jeff an as if look. It's 200, she said. Jeff shook his head. 200 was for going through his underwear drawer. We're talking about breaking and entering. I thought he was going to say breakfast. I was totally sure. Like, as soon as I started reading that word, I was totally sure it was going to be breakfast. It's not. We're talking about breaking and entering, destroying private property, theft. That's like 5 years minimum. Probably more like 10, Doug inserted. Probably, I need a good Doug impression. Probably more like 10. That's good. That's good. I won't change it at all. Jane shot Doug a death glare. Then she tapped pink painted nails, freaking hate that, on the booth's tabletop. The skin at the outer edge of her eyes pulled in. This is what I imagine eyelashes are like. Disregard these fingers. I'm not colorblind anymore. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Huh. Weird. That's awesome. I'm going to go back to reading my black and white book now. Jane shot Doug a death glare. 1,000, Jane said. My name Jeff looked at Maxine. She leaned away from him, attempting to fuse with the window. or perhaps pass right through it. She couldn't believe she was having anything to do with any of this. Still, she gave my name, Jeff, a minuscule nod. Jeff looked at Jane. Okay, he said. Jane stood, adjusting the hem of her pantsuit jacket. She bent forward across the booth table. She leaned in close, just inches from Jeff's face. Maxine got a whiff of Jane's perfume. It was sharp and cutting, like it was a fusion of pepper and grapefruit. In low, in low, menacing tones, Jane spoke. Do it soon, and don't mess it up. Jane twisted her lip. I mean, do mess it up, she said. But don't just mess this up. Jane stalked off. Doug hefted himself off the booth. Maxine watched Doug trail in Jane's wake. Maxine looked at her brother, clearly confused. Jeff was looking at the spot on the table that Jane was pointing to. Maxine, fed up with everything, slapped Jeff's finger. He frowned at her, still baffled. She gave him her best moron look and sigh. And that's chapter 8, boys. It's chapter 8. What'd you think? I was expecting the gross part of that scene to be a lot worse than it was. It's still gross, and I think Doug has taken on so much more of a character outside of the movie, like within the fan base, than he probably was originally intending to from this book. That guy's on Cameo. The guy who plays Doug in the movie. Holy moly, I want to get a cameo from him so bad. He's so cool. I love him. He's on Cameo, and the guy that plays Mike's dad from Stranger Things. He's like my favorite character in Stranger Things, dude. He's so funny. It's like that character, like that exact character. I love him so much. I think he's on Cameo too. Anyway, that was Five Nights at Freddy's chapters 7 through 8. This is a really, really good motivation tool. Because once I finished 7, I really, 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 really didn't want to read 8. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, but if I don't read 8, then that sets a precedent that I only have to read 1 chapter. And then I'm going to have to do 20 of these episodes instead of just 12. And I don't want to do that. I just want to do 12 episodes of this. What do you guys think of the TV back there? I wasn't going to make a joke about it because, like, I thought it'd just be funny if it was nothing. I'll actually show it to you. It's kind of funny. So I hollowed out this TV because I want to make a TV head for my sister because she likes that sort of stuff. And so I hollowed out this TV. This is like the perfect TV to do it with because it goes over your face perfectly. It'll be good to like put a helmet in there, and then it's sort of like just your eyes and your hair and your forehead, and then everything else is down here in this. In here we have granulated sugar and iodized salt. So there's the salt update. I need to put this little tiger by the other one. Since we don't have Sonic and Tails and Knuckles there anymore, I'm gonna put that guy right down there. That's so cute. My sister got me that from South Korea. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name a laptop. And you're watching Five Nights at Freddy's. Also, Jeff was actually in the book this time. That made me so happy. His name a Jeff. My name a Jeff, and your name a dinner. Bye. Oh.